Hey guys, today I'm going to be explaining the story behind Coheed and Cambria's Afterman album. I'm going to be doing Ascension first, and then I'll be doing Descension, the other half of the album, in another video. This is the first 9 tracks, and it's about a character named Sirius, and this takes place way, way before most of the Amory Wars stories, and even way before Year of the Black Rainbow as well. So this is the founding of the Keywork. And so basically it centers around Sirius. He is a revolutionary scientist, and he has found these 7 stars that connect basically what he has coined the term the Keywork, that holds all of the 78 planets together and keeps them from breaking up. So he decides to go on this really, really dangerous mission to explore the Keywork and figure out what it is that is keeping the planets together and connecting the 7 stars. We start off with the character of Sirius, and he has just gotten into a huge fight with his wife right before he left on this mission. And so he is kind of, thinking about that as he's on his ship, and he's about to take his first step off the ship and into the Keywork. So he has this definitely a sense of foreboding and maybe a little bit of guilt about the fight he had with his wife, Mary, right before he left, and he's not even sure if she's even going to be there when he comes back. That's how bad their fight was. But luckily he has his AI called the All-Mother, and that's built into his ship that he's on right now, and it's also built into his suit. So his suit has been designed to withstand the environment of the Keywork, hopefully. And so she's in there, and she kind of helps him through this mission. That's the first track, The Hollow, kind of this sense of foreboding about, stepping into this world of the unknown, and, not really knowing where he stands with his wife, if she's even going to be there when he gets back. So that brings us to the second track on the album, called Key Entity Extraction Number 1, Domino the Destitute. So Sirius takes the leap, and he dives into the Keywork, and he's in there, trying to get his bearings, trying to figure out, what this mysterious light source and energy source is. So he's taking samples and everything, and all of a sudden this face kind of comes out of the blue light, and it just kind of takes over Sirius's body. It possesses him, and it forces Sirius to relive the entity named Domino's past life and kind of his turmoil. So Sirius sees through Domino's eyes the kind of life he's gone through. So Domino is a boxer, and he has a little brother named Chess, and his little brother has kind of eclipsed him as far as winning titles and winning fights and becoming more popular and more successful in boxing. So Domino is kind of, feeling a little shitty about that, so he ends up getting manipulated by this crime lord named Cryptor. So Cryptor finds Domino and sees that he can maybe manipulate him into getting what he wants. So he convinces Domino to kind of push Chess out of his life, and Chess is the one person who is trying to keep Domino on the right track and always been really supportive of him in everything, no matter what. Then comes one night, and it's the biggest fight of Domino's career, and he ends up getting knocked out. And so, after that, his career is pretty much over. He's basically a failure. And there's kind of just no coming back from this huge fight that he lost. And so his reputation is just destroyed, and he ends up getting addicted to drugs, and he's homeless. So then Cryptor offers him basically the deal of a lifetime to get involved on this heist. And so Domino's homeless, he's broke, he has really no other option. So he decides to go in on this heist, and he kind of feels bad for pushing Chess out of his life. So he invites Chess to come on this heist with them. And he thinks that it might help them both, and might kind of help salvage their relationship as well. So the heist ends up going really, really wrong, and Chess ends up getting shot and killed. So at this point, it's just the worst time in Domino's life, and so as an entity in the Keywork, he's forced to kind of relive his entire life over and over again, and he just gets worse and worse every time he goes on, just more and more distraught. Domino's just so overcome by guilt. He ends up killing himself, and right as he pulls the trigger, this is when Sirius is actually able to pull away from this entity that has taken over him. So this brings us to the third track, Afterman, the title track, and this takes place back with Mary, Sirius's wife, on the planet Balancine. So she's feeling really guilty about this fight that she had with Sirius right before he left on this really dangerous mission. And she just feels like, his work has kind of taken precedent over herself, and, they're planning a family together, and she just feels so betrayed, like he chose his work over her and the family they might possibly have together. She wakes up one morning to find the headline, Breaking news, controversial researcher Sirius Amory feared dead after unexplained explosion, ending privately funded endeavor to self-professed Keywork. Obviously at this time, Mary's very devastated, and especially to find out in a way that, is over the news. No one came and told her personally, no one sat down with her and was there for her. She just kind of found out anonymously via online. And then we flash back to Sirius in the Keywork, and this brings us to the next track, Mothers of Men. And this one is about feeling the Keywork. So all these souls that are kind of in torment or in happiness, so whatever positive or negative energy that they've lived throughout their life, they're kind of reliving it day after day. Those emotions are kind of feeling the Keywork. So this is called the Mono. And this place is kind of similar to like purgatory, basically. So it's the first level of the afterlife, and then Sirius will soon discover there is actually a second level to the afterlife as well. So in the Mono, where they kind of relive their lives over and over again, and they have to overcome whatever it was in their past lives in order to move on to the second stage, which is kind of like a paradise. That's basically what this Mothers of Men title track is about. It's about becoming at peace with what you've done in your life and who you are, and just kind of moving away from, a like narcissistic, like self-interest type of mindset onto like the greater good, other people, and the kind of the grand scheme of things. And then moving on to the fifth track, Goodnight, Fair Lady. This is one of my favorite tracks on the album. We go back to Mary on planet Valancine. So it's been a few months since she found out that Sirius is dead. She's really just going through the grieving process. So she hasn't left the house in a very, very long time, and so one day she decides to go out to the bar just to get out of the house. She goes to this local bar called the Fair Lady. She sits down and has a drink, and this creepy guy named Dryer Grinlock sits down beside her. And he starts kind of talking to her and hitting on her a little bit, and then he accidentally knocks her drink over. And he says, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that. Let me buy you another one." So Mary's trying to leave at this point. She's definitely not interested in this guy. She just wants to go home. But the guy already bought her another drink, and so she feels obligated to, stay and drink. So she's about to take her first sip of the drink that Dryer has given her, and she doesn't know that he's put some roofies or drugs in it. So right as she's about to take a drink, someone intervenes right at the last second, and it's Officer Graves. And he's kind of an undercover cop, and he's been trying to catch this guy for a long time. He's been watching the two of them. He kind of pretty much watched the whole thing go down, and he saw Dryer put something in her drink. Mary's obviously very thankful that he saved her. But he gives her his card and says, hey, come down to the police station later so you can get your statement and everything. So then that brings us to Key Entity Extraction 2, Hollywood the Cracked. Sirius ends up meeting the second entity of the Keywork. And so he's there collecting samples, just still a little bit shaken from what he went through with Domino. And he's kind of starting to feel like he's unsure if he can ever find his way out of the Keywork. When another entity comes in and kind of takes over Sirius's body as well. This entity, her name is Holly, and she wants to basically keep him forever. She is very, obsessive, crazy entity in her past life. Holly wanted to be a famous star, she wanted to be famous for anything. And she was obsessed with celebrities, and she even carved names of celebrities into her skin and everything. So she was really obsessed with this one person named Madame Crisis Moreau, and so she was obsessed with kind of emulating her life and wanting to do everything that she did and kind of become her. She even, went as far as getting like plastic surgery to look just like her, and like breaking into her house and everything. So Madame Crisis, she goes to this public event, where she's gonna speak, and Holly ends up shooting her 5 times. So at this point, it's kind of Holly has cracked, so to say. This is, the final straw. Sirius is really afraid that he's never going to get away from her. But then, right at this time, another entity ends up like bursting through Holly and taking hold of Sirius. And this is how he kind of escapes her, is just through another entity taking him over. And this entity is called Vic the Butcher. So that brings us to the next entity extraction, number 3, Vic the Butcher. And so Vic the Butcher was a lieutenant general in the army, and he was basically just a sociopath. He's a tyrant, a cutthroat. He tortured and brainwashed all his recruits, and he also pretty much just killed the people who defied him. Vic goes on one mission where there's a band of a few terrorists hiding out but they're surrounded by a bunch of civilians, like tons and tons more civilians than there are terrorists. And so Vic tells his sergeant, Major Sentry, to bomb all of them. He doesn't care, He just wants to get the terrorists, and he doesn't kill how many innocent people he kills in the process. So Sergeant Major Sentry ends up refusing. He's like, I'm not going to do that. That's awful. So then Vic orders his soldiers to capture and hang Sentry for disobeying him. So that night, soldiers come and they kill him. And then Vic tells Sentry's family that he killed himself, that he committed suicide. So years and years later, Vic is retired, and he's being charged with war crimes, obviously, because that wasn't the first time something like that had happened. So Vic's plan is to basically just burn alive himself, his wife, and everyone in his apartment building 184. And so Sirius sees what he's about to do, and he this is really real for Sirius. So he can't let these innocent people die, and so Sirius ends up taking his body back over from Vic, and he extinguishes the match right before Vic lights the whole apartment building on fire. He's kind of defied this entity, and so Vic has decided to just, murder him since he's disobeying him. So the All-Mother informs Sirius that his body is about to die from Vic taking over him in anger. And so, but right at the last minute, this warm light kind of comes over him and pulls him out of the entity that is Vic the Butcher. So this brings us to our next song. The last key entity extraction on this album is Evagria the Faithful. Evagria is the one entity that is pretty much good that Sirius encounters, and she is actually a soul from the second level of the afterlife, kind of the utopia. That is the second level after you pass the purgatory of the mono. She's basically that, all that's good in the world. She was just a genuinely good person. She was a social worker, and she adopted a bunch of orphan children. We come to find out she's been diagnosed with a rare bone disease, and she's in the hospital, and she ends up kind of suffering for a really long time. But she has so many people whose lives that she's touched, all the children that she's adopted, and they're pretty much there for her while she's, in the hospital on her death. So she kind of cocoons Sirius and kind of keeps him safe and keeps him from getting snatched up and taken over and just destroyed by all the other malicious entities. So that brings us to our last song on the album, or the Ascension part of Afterman, and that is Subtraction. Evagria kind of leads Sirius to have sort of like an epiphany, about life and death and morality, now that he is conscious of the two different levels of the afterlife, the purgatory and the utopia. And he sees the difference between, the souls that are in each of those. And so he kind of comes to realization about, some choices that he's made in his life. He's done this really dangerous mission to basically just get recognition because, all the other scientists kind of despise him. And so he realizes that, the choices he's made with his career has really been degrading to his relationship with his wife. At this point, he kind of realizes that he's put his career before his wife, and he realizes how unfair that is to her. He's realizing that he may never come back from this, and he's really regretting, how he left things with her. If he never comes home, she's going to have to deal with, grief of losing him forever. That's where the end of Afterman Ascension ends. It's only 9 tracks. I will do Afterman Descension maybe next week, and let me know if I got anything incorrect, because I actually did not buy the limited edition of Afterman when it first came out. So everything I've told you is basically information that I had to gather online. I don't actually have the physical coffee book table story of Afterman, which I really wish I had, but unfortunately I don't. If you're wondering about the story behind No World for Tomorrow, there are no comics for No World for Tomorrow. I'm really hoping that Claudio and Chandra are going to write them at some point, but as for right now, there are no comic books to go along with that album yet. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments, and subscribe if you feel like it. I'll do Afterman Descension next, and then I'll also do Vaxis at some point as well.